future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
I remember everything. Hey, howdy, folks. Greetings and salutations, everyone. You have tuned in to Dr. Judy WTF, which is What the Freud. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and if you're watching us, you can see we have a guest in studio. We have Austin Wallis. He's going to be talking about our topic today. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and of course, YouTube. And this is a call-in show. If you want to get onto the conversation, and some of you just very well might, please do. It's area code 323-843-2826. That's 323-843-2826. And if you're international, you can call us on Skype on UBN, which is Universal Broadcasting Network, UBN Radio number 2. And our topic today is dealing with the world of LBGTQ.
LG.
As I said,
That's
LG.
a lot of letters.
Huh? That's a mouthful, no matter how you slice it. And I want to preface this that we're dealing this from a psychological perspective. We're really trying to stay away from the political aspect and the religious aspect. So if you want to add comments on YouTube at the end of the show or call in, that was what we're going to focus on today. Nature versus nurture is our topic today on to be gay or not too gay or not too gay. I like that title of an article. That is the question. Too gay or not too gay today. So welcome, Ashton. Thanks for being in the neighborhood and being part of our show.
Of course. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me, of course.
I really appreciate you being here. And this is a topic way overdue, obviously a sensitive topic. And we're going to dive right in because a lot of people are very interested in shrinking things, especially our audience. They're interested in how anything that has a cause behind it is manifesting. And in this case, in all cases, there's a cause behind everything. So today we're going to delve into sexuality, homosexuality, the entire gamut of sexual spectrum, and have the age-old discussion of nature versus nurture, which seems to really speak to every single topic on the planet.
And I forgot to throw in, we're going to have, obviously, at the end of the show, Shrink That Tune, and I'll give you a hint. We just had to do one from Queen.
Of course we did. Okay.
And I've got a little ditty from a psychological perspective regarding the DSM-3 when you really want to deal with it real quick in terms of stuff.
Okay, so basically, Austin, why I really appreciate you being here today is because you're so open, you're honest. You also have your own YouTube channel called Austin
Wallis. It's
thank you.
AUSTIN.
Speak a little of that.
WALLIS. If you want to check it out, of course you don't have to, but I would appreciate it.
Of course, of course.
But I'm really happy to be here because this is a topic that a lot of people are afraid to ask about. It's kind of weird because it suggests, like, did you pick your sexuality or, do you believe that this is something that has been with you since birth? So I'm really happy we get to sit here and talk, about it and just be casual and just have open ideas and opinions.
Yes, very much so. So my sense of it is that everything's on a continuum. So as is mental health is on a continuum when we talk about different labels. Okay, so this is another label, but things are not just neatly labeled and stuck in boxes. So as a female, I know that there's a wide range of feelings that I personally might have about a male, a female, any end of the spectrum. And as human beings, we're going to have different feelings at any given point in time. So as we all know, in the case of nature versus nurture, I want to talk about how I view it and then kind of work backwards on it. I really do feel that they interplay. I
Yes.
think that's a nature nurture kind of thing. And so naturally we're born with genetics, tendencies, so on. I have brown eyes, you have beautiful blue eyes,
Thank you.
green eyes.
It's kind of a weird mixture.
Mixture. Okay, and so those are our genetics. And then how we turn out in terms of our sexuality or our nature part or any aspect of us is really a combination of the interplay between the two of the two factors. And so today what I want to do is I want to actually mind map your
down.
life, and I hope people will call in, because I think that with the honesty and the vulnerability that you have to offer the audience today, people can get a sense, at least in one live case study, what at least you think is going on, and so that people may get a little bit more insight insofar as what is going on. So a little bit about the mind map for those of you who have never seen it before. The mind map was intended as a system of healing to heal human disconnect. It was originally meant to heal global disconnect, but then I went down to that micro level of healing human disconnect. So the question today, insofar as your life is concerned and your sexuality is concerned, is your being gay a product, so to speak, of some form of disconnect.
Yeah.
Okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to put the mind map up. And
those of you that are listening, you can actually go to drjudywtf.com and see the mind map. And there it is.
okay.
There.
So panel 1 represents childhood wounds. Okay, so there are 5 of them. There's physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's neglect, and there's smothering. It's impossible to go through life unscathed. It just,
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who hasn't been
We don't get out of this alive.
at the effect of some level of wound. And so when the level is very, very high, then I liken it to a hole in the soul. Okay, and that's what we deal with at the Psychological Healing Center. We deal with people who have holes in souls because they've been severely, in some cases, beaten, molested, neglected, smothered, something along those lines. Okay, so now we're going to focus our lens on human sexuality.
Yes.
Okay, and case study here, Austin Wallis. And so, so if I'm to ask you about those 5 childhood wounds, what would you say would be most relevant to you?
I definitely had a disconnect from my father, like slightly almost neglect, just because, at some points I felt like I needed some type of father figure and I really didn't have access to one.
Okay.
We were never close. We fought constantly just because he was an alcoholic. There was a lot of anger pushed in his direction towards me because my life didn't get to be normal because of his alcoholism.
Okay. And were your parents together throughout your childhood?
Yes, and they're
Okay.
still together to
They
this
still
day.
are together. Amazing. Okay.
Good.
But because of that, I do feel like it did maybe lead into my homosexuality, just because you see so many other gay people that just don't have a strong father figure, and it kind of almost does maybe look like, mentally as a child, I was starting to look for a father figure and then just looked up to men, and now I'm more interested in men. Maybe it changed over some type
Okay.
of weird way, but
Okay.
I wouldn't go as far as to say that that might be a reason that I came out the way I am.
Contributing factor.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. What about I mean, purely you're free to use your instincts on this. Do you think that there was a nature part to this, that perhaps there was something genetically within that encoded you to be gay, and then the nature part, so to speak, helped to bring it into manifestation? What's your thought on that?
So I do think there might have been a little bit of nature involved, just because my parents said that even as a child, I would do things that just weren't normal for most boys. Even before I realized there was a disconnect between me and my father, just, like when I was like 3 or 4, I would just kind of do more feminine things. But that was also thought because I was also raised around a lot of girls, and
Okay.
we never really knew which one it was, but I always did act differently from other boys. I never had a lot of friends that were guys just because I never really understood how to connect with them. I never knew how to
Okay.
talk to them.
Okay.
So maybe that was a nature aspect, just because I just never felt like I could connect with them like I could with other girls. But
Do you have sisters?
I don't. I'm actually an only child.
Okay.
So I really did depend on my friends for a lot. Like they became my family and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it could go both ways, as to say, was I acting more feminine because I was with girls, or was I acting more feminine just because that's what I was predisposed to do, type of
Okay.
thing.
Okay. And so, just in terms of, see, one thing about cause, I call it the causal area, is the first 2-3 years of life, and that's the blueprint area. That's where all of these, I call them pre-verbal injuries, take place. So even though you may not have internalized the message cognitively, there may have been a sense that your father just isn't that around, that your mother is needing to be more independent, that as an only child, if your father's not around, then you don't have any dude bonding, so to speak, with that male figure. Okay, so now I had the opportunity to talk to you a little bit before the show, and it's really interesting because you're pretty engaged in some very traditionally masculine activities, so maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
I mean, in some aspects, I'm just a normal guy. Like, I enjoy using firearms. Like, I guess it might be because I'm from Texas, but
Probably.
but I find it relaxing to just go to the range every now and then and just kind of like unload a clip, just because
Okay.
there's something strangely soothing about it to me. But I'm also, very into video games and horror movies and, shoot 'em up movies and that type of thing.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess you could call that more masculine.
Okay.
But at the same time, I also do slide more to the feminine side. Like, I do watch makeup tutorials, even though
Yeah.
I don't really wear makeup. I just
Okay.
find it relaxing.
I'll bet you like chick flicks too, huh?
I don't. I find it
No,
so
he likes
funny.
the other.
Yeah.
He likes the
I was
ammo.
just trying to be funny.
It's so weird. I can't stand like feely movies. I'm just like,
No.
y'all, what are we doing here?
So I think this is a good point, though. I mean, I know we're kind of laughing about it, but our brain somehow feels comfortable to pigeonhole people.
Yes.
And, we want, gay means he likes pink, right?
Yeah.
Gay means he likes to wear dresses. I mean, these are the stereotypical pigeonholed ideas that we have.
Yeah.
But the world doesn't work that
Oh,
way.
God,
not
at
at
all.
all. And so in my practice, I have a wide range of patients, as you must know. And so I'm really discovering that that gray area, right? That gray area is really, it's really huge. And one of the things that we like to do with gray areas is we like to stick that gray area. We don't like gray because we don't know what to do with it.
Black and white.
Okay?
It's just out there.
It's
Black
just
and
out
white.
there. But again, I heard that gray is like the most popular color today to decorate with. So maybe we're moving more toward gray.
Possibly.
Maybe that's a metaphor. Okay.
It's not orange.
No, but maybe gray is the new black or something like that. I don't know.
Went from orange is the new black to now gray is the new
Or-
black.
Yeah, now gray is the new black. Okay, so it's case by case basis, isn't it? So in your case, it's very interesting to note that if we're going to say there's a cause, and when I say cause, I don't mean fault. This is not a blame situation. It's not. Let's look at it as bad, good, right, wrong. That's not what we're doing here. We're tracing it. We're pattern recognizing. That's what I mean by think like a shrink. So we want to see that if the domino falls this way and there's a domino in front of it, what's going to happen is boom, 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 right? They're all just going to go like that. Okay, so with the cause in mind, a weak father, weak alcoholic father, I'm assuming that your mother had to do it alone.
My mom basically raised me. I mean, my dad, he helped and stuff, but I never saw him as a big portion of my life.
Okay. So from a mind map perspective, the inside world represents the female, and the outside world, which is panel 2, as a metaphor for panel 2. If you can put the mind map up for another moment
There you go.
here. Okay, thank you so much.
Panel 2.
Okay, so panel 1 are the wounds of childhood, and then panel 2 is the outside world and the reaction to the wounds. So let's say the child is a little overwhelmed or anxious. Mother can do much, but then father needs to be there to soften the blow, mitigate the damages, nurture the nurturers so that all the system pieces can work together. But if dad isn't really around, if he's in an alcoholic state, it all falls on mommy. And so what happens is that baby is being raised by a woman who's not being nurtured by a man, which means that she has to reach within herself to take her emotional energy forth to her baby. Okay? And so the question is, where does she get all of this when she doesn't have a support system?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So therefore, when we're talking about panel 2, which is the reaction to the wound in the case of the whole way of seeing the system, one of the aspects of reaction to the wound that may be so for you is that maybe in life you experience a little bit more anxiety. Is that possible?
Definitely. Right on the nose.
Okay. Okay, so
There we go.
tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, I guess you can say I've been an anxious person from the very beginning. I was,
Okay.
I think I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder when I was in middle school.
Okay. How did it show up, or why were they on it so early?
I was honestly a very shy child, just because any type of social interaction would make me very anxious, and I didn't know how to represent myself. And
Okay.
so I was very shy to start off with, and then I kind of grew out of that and became more of a people person. But I became more anxious about other things, stuff like school and making friends, and cars is a really weird one, but driving can make me very anxious sometimes. But
Okay.
what I've noticed is I do like suppress a lot of my anxiety, and then it comes out in little bursts, and I get just, like panic attacks and stuff like that. But
Okay.
over the years, I've learned how to control it and
Okay.
manage it and work with it and live like a normal person. But it definitely has affected me. I was medicated for quite a while, but
Okay. So I wouldn't be surprised if your father suffered from some anxiety himself, because he's certainly self-medicating, is he
yes,
not?
both of my parents and all of my grandparents all had actually pretty bad anxiety.
Okay. Okay, and there's another nature versus nurture situation, because is anxiety nature? Is it nurture? So I look at it as multi-generational. So instead of seeing it necessarily as genetically multi-generational, I go to the genetics as last resort, and I go to the psychological causes, obviously, because I'm a psychologist. Okay, so I see things from that perspective.
You think?
You think, right? Okay. So in terms of that, it's very possible that your father's father or mother didn't give him the nurturance that he needed. So if we look at your grandparents, tell me about your father's father and mother.
He was actually a war veteran, but he died.
This is your grandfather.
Yes, my grandfather died about I don't know how many years ago. It was quite a while ago, but from what I've heard is he wasn't also very loving. He wasn't very nurturing. He was very stern, father figure, discipline, get a job.
Get a job. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I got from what
Okay.
I've heard about him. I remember very little about him other than, when I was there, I was a child, so he was always smiling and stuff. But I heard he was actually a very strict man.
And what about your grandmother? This is your father's mother.
Yes, she is also, she's pretty tightly wound.
Okay.
She was very strict also. From what I've heard, his whole childhood was very structured and strict and almost very military-like.
Seems devoid of emotion, the way you're
Yes.
describing it. Okay, so can you hear how the emotional goodies were not stored within his system? So he didn't have a lot to give emotionally, but he kind of knew how to function, at least on some levels. He knew how to function, and so he actually ended up functioning to the point where he was able to stay in his marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did he do that?
Honestly, I think it's more that both my parents are just very stubborn. I honestly don't think they're very right for each other. I think they're just doing it because what else are they going to do? That type of situation, which is sad. But I've told them, if I want to get a divorce, like, it really won't affect me very much. Like, don't stay together just for me. Like, don't make your lives miserable.
Especially
just for me.
now.
It's a little late now.
Right? Yeah.
It's
I'm
like
like, I'm like, I left. You can do whatever you want, like,
Right.
please. But my dad is just a man who likes structure, and now that he's been in a marriage for so long, I don't think he would ever want to get out of it.
Or maybe mom doesn't like change. I mean, they're used to it. That's what they've done. Why rock the boat? It's kind of working, and I don't really want to go through all that to find somebody else or be alone.
And there is actually a part of me that hopes, since I'm now gone, there was a lot of tension between me and my father while I was home. So there is a part of me that hopes now that I'm gone, there will be less tension, and hopefully it'll be better for both of them. Maybe they'll reconnect or rekindle whatever type of feelings they have. So that's my...
Well, how did your parents, how old were you when you decided that you were gay, and how old were you when you decided to tell the world that you were gay?
I was maybe a 6th grader when I think I was actually in 7th grade. Okay. When I finally just kind of accepted it. I was just like, okay, this is it. But I was in private school, and it was definitely something that I did not want to be. I didn't want to be gay. I remember praying like almost every day, just please don't, because I could kind of...
Why was that so?
I grew up in a school that told you if you're gay, you're going to hell. Like,
probably, was there a religious aspect to the school?
Yeah, it was. Okay. It was Lutheran.
Lutheran,
and, they never really like pushed it like you're going to hell if you're gay, but you read it. It's there and you see it.
Unequivocally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah, it was there, and it was always something in the back of my head. I feel like even as a child, I always knew, but I didn't let it kind of manifest and become a reality until like I accepted it when I think I was like a 7th grader, just because I didn't want it to be true. I just kept telling myself, well, puberty will change things, and then puberty came and went, and I'm like, nothing changed. So I just kind of accepted it, and I was like, I guess I'm gay. And I remember I had swine flu when I accepted it, because I was sitting there like halfway delusional being like, guys are cute, and I was like, that's not normal. But I came out
not normal for the environment you're in.
No,
or not
absolutely
acceptable
not.
would be the better way to see it. Not acceptable.
No, so it was upsetting to me. There was a lot of crying alone because I had no one to talk to about it, and I felt like I was going to hell for what I was and for what I never decided to be this. It kind of just happened, and it was very frustrating. But I came out, I think, my junior year of high school. I believe it was either like the end of my sophomore or the beginning of my junior year, but I actually came out on Instagram because it was a small school. I was also still in private school in high school, but it was such a small school. Everybody knew each other, and there was a rumor going around about me being gay, and people were asking me.
And you're now how old?
I'm 19 now.
At that time you were
19. At that time I was...
How old are you now?
I'm 19 now.
Okay, you're 19 now.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
But how old were you? Sorry, what?
No, junior high. You said junior in high school?
Yeah.
Wow, you went through almost half your high school. Wow.
I think I want to say 16 to 17. I know I had a car.
Yep. Okay, 16.
But I just remember being like, I can't handle everybody talking about me, and it started to like become skewed. Like people were saying stuff that wasn't true, and I was like, I'm just going to clarify. So I came out on Instagram. I made a picture that was like, I'm strong, I'm brave, I'm something, and then I'm gay.
Wow.
And that was how I did it. A few people knew before that, a few very good friends of mine, but I was done of people not knowing and people asking. So I was just like, I came out.
And I'm sure at that point it spread pretty quickly.
Oh yes. I walked into school the next day and I felt like a movie star. Everyone was like looking at me, whispering, and I'm like, nothing's really changed. I'm still the same person.
That's right. I mean, wow, what a courageous.
But I was the first person to ever publicly come out at that school.
Oh wow.
And
trailblazer you are.
You are.
I am.
And what did your parents do in the face of that?
Okay, so when I came out to my mom,
So they're not on Instagram, so they didn't get the memo.
no,
probably.
I told my mom actually. I told my mom was actually the second person that I told. I was very close with my mom. I forgot I left that out, but I told one of my neighbors who I grew up with first, and then I told my mom. And she did not react the way I wanted her to. In my head, I was like, "Oh, she's going to accept me with open arms. This is going to be everything's going to be okay." And I told her. She burst into tears. I burst into tears. We didn't talk for a while.
Oops.
And then we started talking, and I was so mad at her. I was like, "Why? Why wouldn't you just love me? Like, what happened?" And she was like, "It wasn't that I was mad at you for being gay. It was just that I knew you were going to have a harder life because of it, and that hurt me to know." And she was also explaining that when I came out, a part of me died to her. Like, she had expectations. She thought I was going to get a wife, have kids, have a normal
grandkids.
family.
Yes, and you're the only child, so
And
the
I'm the only
pressure is
child.
on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The pressure was
right.
definitely on.
Yeah.
I don't even like kids, but I think I'm going to end up with kids just because my mom
Jeez,
wants
your
kids.
mom wants- you know, and that's such an interesting pivotal point. See, if a mom says something like that, I think that again we're in a gray area. So what were those words she said? She says it's not that I
She wasn't
stopped loving you.
Oh,
It's
no, not at
that
all.
it's that I wanted your life to be easier than this pathway that's happening before
Yes.
our eyes. So what do you think of that? Do you think that that's what it was all about, or are we back in the gray area of, yeah, some of it is that of course every mother or many mothers, and we've done so many series on narcissistic mothers here that I think that our audience is very, very tuned in.
And of course, last week was Father's Day. We repeated a show on narcissistic fathers.
Yeah, of course we did. We're such troublemakers, Walt, really.
No, actually, we're just narcissistic about narcissism.
I think we are.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so look, you know, I think that what happens when big announcements like that are made is that people don't know what to do with that information because, as you said, it's not just you're being gay; it's all of her expectations. So she's pretty much going into grief. She's
Yes.
the grandchildren aspect is now dying.
Yeah.
So she's grieving that, and then the daughter-in-law aspect that's dying off too.
Yeah.
And you know the wedding where there's going to be this beautiful bride and you know the groom and walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
You see, so there's so many aspects to this.
I remember the minute I told her, and she did use the term. She said it was like a part of you died. Like,
Yes.
I remember sitting down because it was my heart was pounding when I told her. I actually ended
Sure.
up, I texted her and I told her because I couldn't say the words. I texted her. I'm like, I really need to tell you like something super duper important, and I just don't know how to start the conversation.
Yes.
But I remember right when I said I'm gay, I watched it in her eyes. It was like she watched me die. It was so sad, and I was furious because I was just like, why don't you accept me for who I am? Like, you know, I fought it for so long, and I just couldn't fight it off forever. And you know, I thought you were the one person that was just going to be like, it's okay, like we'll get through this. And I just assumed at first that she was upset and she probably thought it was my decision. And she even asked, so does this mean you want to be a girl? Like, there's so little known about it as a parent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk more about that. So
She actually asked me that for a while. It
Okay.
was, so does
So
this
in other
mean,
words, does that mean you want to have a sex operation? Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
level
it was,
of you want to be a
it
girl?
was, do you want to, you know, are you going to start dressing differently? Like, are you going to start acting differently? Are you, do you want to be a girl? Like, are you not comfortable in your body? And I was like, no, wait, how much am I allowed to say?
Anything you want. This is
we're unregulated because we're not on AM radio.
Exactly.
So
Well,
I was going
whatever.
to tell you that you're free to do it on occasion.
Unedited.
She was like, well, like, do you want to have a section? I'm like, no, I love my penis. It's like, it's great. I can stand up and pee. Like, it's all fabulous. Like, I'm so happy with it.
I'm pretty attached to it, you know?
Yeah, no, like, I'm thrilled. Like, everything's fine. I just like guys. Like, that's the only thing. Like,
What?
and she was like, and we talked about it for so, like, we sat down about a week later and just really went into it. And she was like, you know, there was some stuff I should have picked up on because I had girlfriends in middle school because I was like, if I have a girlfriend, like maybe that'll like train it out of me or whatever. And we never end up kissing because that felt so wrong to me. And that's one part where I think it's nature.
Okay. Where you just knew that wasn't going to fit your body.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Okay.
if you want to, we can go back on that. But I remember starting to have a girlfriend, and I asked my mom, I'm like, so like, what does this mean? Like, what am I supposed to feel? Like, this doesn't, I don't know what to do. And she was like, well, I don't know. And she went back on that. She's like, I remember you acting like you had no idea like what it meant to be in a relationship, and that's almost strange to ask because for most people it comes naturally. You want to care for that person, you want to love that person, and for me it was just like it didn't feel like that. It just felt like I like the girl that I ended up
awkward.
being. Yeah,
Okay. So
absolutely.
let's take a segue back to cause, that causal area. Okay. So what did you see between your mother and your father?
A definite disconnect. They were never. I very rarely saw them like each other, let alone be affectionate. Just because my mom didn't like his alcoholism as much as I did, and she would always be like, you need to stop drinking, all of that
Question:
stuff.
did he hold down a job? Was he
Was
lucrative financially?
he's very successful.
So he was a functioning
Yes,
alcoholic.
functioning,
He
very
is-
very functioning.
And he's still functioning.
Yes.
Okay.
Supposedly right now he is working on cutting back on his drinking, but
Okay.
I'm not really paying attention anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. You have your own life.
I did. I moved. That was the only way I could get out of that, just because it was very self-destructive to just be in a house.
I mean,
like
I can
that.
totally relate to you because my father was a functioning alcoholic as well. He never had a drink before 5 o'clock, but
Exactly.
by 9 or 10, he was done.
And I had the discussion with him all the time. I'm like, I get home at 3, and you get home at. I think he would get home at 5 every day. He worked on weekends too for a while. He retired when I was in high school at some point. But I told him, I get home at 3, you get home at 5, and you're plastered by 6. Like, I never made a connection with you. I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am. And he would fight that. But then I'd ask him questions, and then he would realize he knew nothing about me.
We would make jokes that we were like two ships passing in the night. I mean, I'd come home later. He'd worked, and I agree. I totally get it.
And in some way I understood his alcoholism because he would have such a long and, I guess, hard day at work, and then he'd come home and he'd just want to
Disconnect.
just leave
Yeah.
his body and
Check out.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. But at the same time, it's like I feel like there was some part of him that you have a family, you have an obligation to at least be a part of your family.
So one of the aspects that I deal with a lot in the therapy is core beliefs. So we all have core beliefs. We have core beliefs about ourselves. An example, I'm talking negative core beliefs here.
Yes.
Core beliefs like I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, or I'm not lovable. There's just a whole slew of core beliefs. We also hold core beliefs about relationships. So when you looked at your mother and your father and you saw that dynamic and thought, I don't know if I want to do that. That's not what I want for myself. What do you think your core belief might have been about a male-female relationship, the only one you knew, mom and dad?
I mean, I saw it struggle and be at really, really high points and also be at very low points quite frequently. But I don't know if that really played a role in how I saw female-male relationships, just because they were my parents. I never really looked to them as advice of what a relationship should look like, because I see what happens behind closed doors. No family's perfect, of course, but it's just maybe that did play into it, though, now that I think about it. Just because I always saw the disconnect of my dad wanted one thing, my mom wanted another thing, and they never agreed on anything.
Oh my, no compromise?
No, ever, not ever.
Wow.
They were two completely different people. My mom was someone that was always outside. My dad was someone that was always inside working. And my mom was more of a free spirit. He was more tied down.
Regimented.
Yeah.
So when you told your father about this, what happened?
The weirdest thing. He got
Okay.
mad at me that I didn't tell him sooner.
Really?
Yeah, he took it better than my mom did, surprisingly.
Amazing.
Surprising.
Especially because he grew up extremely religious. He never
What
really,
a surprise.
that was something that shocked me quite a bit, because
like, son, why did you come to me
yeah, it was like
sooner?
it was like, why didn't you tell me? Because I told my mom, and I was like, don't tell dad, and she went and told my dad.
Of course.
and then, but it was so awkward because we had just started working out together, and she
you
was like,
and your dad?
yes,
Okay.
because it was in a time where we were trying to get things to work out. It didn't end up working out, but we went to go work out the next day, and it was just very awkward. And I remember him asking me, like, I'm not frustrated at all that you're gay, like I don't really care or whatever, but why didn't you tell me sooner? You told mom first, why didn't you tell me? And then there was the whole thing where, like, we don't talk about feelings or
So
anything.
how interesting. What's even more significant to me is not whether or not you're going to tell him that you're gay or whatever, but that you're going to tell him anything, given how disconnected you guys were. So why do you think he even expected, given that he wasn't really fully engaged in a father-son relationship with you, that you would? Isn't that in and of itself a little confusing? Like, really, you expected that? I mean, come on, Dad. We hardly talk at all. I hardly see you at all.
Yeah. So the weird thing about my dad was, even though he knew we had no connection, he always expected me to act like we had a connection in a weird way. He would always ask me, like me and my mom would talk, and he'd be like, "What are you guys talking about?" I'm like, "I don't know, just stuff. Like we just don't talk." But he always, there was always a part of him that wanted to have, a relationship with me, but because of the way he was, like I didn't ever feel like I could, just because, I only saw him very rarely when he was sober, and then he'd be drunk, and he was kind of an asshole when he was drunk.
Yeah, there you go. The belligerent drunk. They're not fun.
No, not at all. And he said a lot of
things he regrets or shouldn't have. And
but at the same time, because that's just how alcohol works, it was all things he was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I know that alcohol doesn't make you have new thoughts. It just makes you more likely to just blurt those things out.
Yes. And when he was taking in the information, do you know if he was high at the time, or was he sober when you
he was
speaking about this subject?
He was sober.
He was sober. Okay.
Yeah. But he took it pretty well. In that moment.
Why do you think, given that he too is religious, that he's strict, he sounds really traditional?
I feel like
what
he
do you
knew.
think was going? Oh, you thought.
I feel like he knew, probably. Okay. I feel like me and my mom were so close that she probably didn't see it, because my mom had no idea. She was like, "Oh my God, how?" And all my neighbors were like, "Well, duh, like we could see it from a mile away."
Okay, what about your classmates? Over time, what happened with them? Did they?
I actually had very few problems at school. A few people stopped talking to me, but they weren't anybody I was close with.
Okay.
It did cause a few problems later on, but that's just because of ignorant parents type of thing.
So you mean there was not one other person in that school system? I remember studying human sexuality back in the day in graduate school, and I remember the statistics to be something like 1 in 10?
10%.
10%?
Yeah.
Yes.
And at that time, I won't date myself too much, but the theory was that it was nature nurture, but 10% was straight out nature. Okay, so was there not one person in your school, whether that person be male or female, that you were, quote, a stand for, that you gave them a voice, maybe, that you...
There were a lot, actually.
There were? Oh, I figured as much.
Many,
okay, so what happened to
So
those people?
I assume after, and I'm going to get to that, but there were more that obviously came after you because you kind of blazed the trail.
Actually, there were less that came out after me.
There were less?
Well, less. How could be less than one? You're dead.
Well,
Yeah, that's a good point, Walt. You're good at math. Walt's very good at math.
I'm a numbers guy.
what happened is I actually ended up leaving the school because of my sexuality.
Oh, wow.
Because they didn't want you there, and it was clear, and you felt that, or because why?
My
what happened?
principal was, and I'm not going to say his name. I've talked about this so much, but he wasn't.
This is all in Texas, right?
Yes, he wasn't as fond of gay people, and since I was the only one that publicly came out that he could prove this one's gay,
Tag you're it.
He found out that I had a YouTube channel, and he found a loophole in the
the school contract.
Yeah, in the school contract that basically said that as a student, I'm not allowed to promote anything that went against the Bible, and he said, since you're talking about being gay, you were promoting being against the Bible, and you either have to take it down or leave. And at that time, I had a fan base of, I think, like 10,000 people, which was a lot to me.
Sure.
That's a lot.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I was like...
Especially for somebody,
Yeah,
16,
it's a lot.
Yes,
years
yes.
old? Yeah.
And I was devastated because I had so many friends there that I had knew since middle school. But I didn't want to be at a school where the person in charge doesn't like me.
No way.
And it was obvious. It was
toxic situation.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
And I ended up leaving, and I made a video about it, and it ended up backlashing against the school and the principal. Now, pretty much anybody could come out that school. They could scream, "I'm gay," down the hallways, and no one would say anything.
Well, because you trailblazed. Because you had the courage.
Yes,
yeah,
I stood up and
Yes.
said what was, wrong with that. But right after I came out, they saw how I was treated by, well, not treated, but like what ended up happening. So there were people that were gay, but they were like, I can see where this is going. I don't think I'm going to.
Yeah, I think I'm going to
I'm
just
here.
keep it to
Yeah,
myself.
I can wait a little while longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it wasn't difficult. It was frustrating. But I made it.
Well, you have to understand there's the pioneers and the settlers. You're a pioneer, so you blaze the trail. You're the one that take the arrows and the guns and whatnot, and the
Yes.
settlers come after you, and you've already blazed the trail, and they can pretty much just walk in your footsteps, and it's a whole lot easier. So you're the one that took all the heat.
And I think part of it is, interestingly enough, I think because you had a strong mother-son bond, so there was your mental health. Even though she was saying, yikes, my son is gay, she's the one who gave you the mental health to stand up for yourself,
Absolutely.
to have that backbone, to support yourself, to face public discrimination.
My mom,
Okay.
through that whole situation, stood behind me like a boss the whole time.
She did after she
Yes.
kind of
Well, you're
digested.
Oh yeah. Like
Okay, after she digested everything,
Yes.
then she did what?
it only took her about a week, and I mean
Okay.
things were a little weird after this. But I was also out at my school for quite a while before this ended up happening.
Okay.
It was about a year after I came out that I ended up being asked to leave, and it was. Maybe I did come out earlier because now that I'm thinking about it, it was near the end of my junior year that I was asked to leave. But my mom she stood behind me. She's like, "This is ridiculous. You do not deserve to go through this. If you want to leave, I support you, blah, 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 blah." Even when at the very end, he passed a pamphlet that was like we can fix you or mentally. And I looked over at her and she looked like she was about to jump across the table and punch him. It was,
Wow.
yeah, my
Yeah.
mom is incredible and she stands behind me 100% now. But
Well, your dad did too, in a sense. I mean, hey, you break the news to him, and hey, let's go work out. So it's not like he ostracized you or did anything to do
did.
with you. So he accepted you. He was just
Yes.
hurt that, from a communication perspective, you knew sooner. Why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
So both kind of supported you.
yes, neither of my parents have excluded me because I was gay. It did make things a little weirder with me and my dad just because he doesn't know how to deal with that. My mom is fine with it. She's like, "Are you dating anyone? Like, what's the story?"
Do I still have a chance for grandchildren?
Yeah, no, she's like, she's great with it. But yeah, because of my mom, I do have a very, very strong personality, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind and say
Obviously
that's not
not.
right and stand up for what I believe in. And I'm so happy. 3 minutes. Oh.
I think we have a few minutes.
We got more money. We got about 3-4 minutes.
Okay, so then you left to the other school. Did you get more support there?
I then went to a public school, and I had a great time.
You had a great time.
Great
Okay.
teachers. Everything worked out.
Well,
Okay.
also in terms of your social media, right? You had a whole new crowd to introduce yourself to.
Yes.
So from that perspective, I'm sure that worked out.
When my story came out about me posting the video about my school is when I actually got most of my followers
Yeah, see.
because I was put everywhere for a while,
Yeah.
and that really boosted me. So it was a crappy situation, but it ended up working out really well in the end, which I'm thankful for now.
And I think that people who are gay, bisexual, along the spectrum of LGBTQ, they need support. They need community.
It's so confusing.
It's so difficult to do this alone. And so it makes sense that there's gay pride. It makes sense that there are different meetups and support centers and of course there have been some tragedies, as we
Yes.
know, around this. And so I talk a lot about the cracked lens of perception. So I really want to say this because just because someone is gay or straight or bi or whatever spectrum of sexuality you're on, there's a distinction between mental unhealth and sexuality. Sometimes they cross over, right?
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
Sometimes there's a cause behind it, but at the end of the process, if you choose, if your propensity is one way and then you choose to be that way, you can have choices. You can go through conversion therapy, right?
Yes.
What do you think of conversion therapy, by the way? Some people opt in for, and by the way, if you don't know what conversion therapy is, just quickly, what it is people who are gay, they don't want to be gay, and so they want to basically be trained out of their sexual orientation.
They themselves make the decision.
They make
Yes.
that decision.
Yeah, they themselves make the decision.
And
They want to change.
Right. They want to make that decision, sometimes for religious reasons,
Yes.
because they don't want to lead a gay lifestyle. They want to be married. They want to have children. And so they opt out of that orientation, and then they need counseling. And so what are your thoughts? Do you know anybody who's been through conversion therapy?
I do not know anybody. To me, it's sad just because I can't imagine being in a state of mind where I feel like, oh, I need to change myself to be more happy. But, if that's what you want to do for your own reasons, then you have
Yes.
every right to go do it. I
Yes.
shouldn't tell you, either way. But I guess the worst thing about conversion therapy is just when people tell you to do it. If you're doing
I
it
don't
on
think
your
it'll work if somebody's
Oh, no,
telling you.
absolutely not.
Right. Okay.
if you want to do it on your own terms because of your own reasons, that's totally fine. You're allowed to. It's your body. It's your mental health. But I just don't think it's something that should be used almost as like a weapon of you need to be converted back to what they think is right.
So, in your opinion, what do you think of the distinction between mental health and sexuality? Can one be sexually healthy and gay and not have it mean that there's some sort of an emotional unhealth behind it, or even if there is, to still have a commitment toward the lifestyle and still choose the lifestyle and enjoy the peace and the acceptance of the lifestyle? What do you think is that distinction?
I think that it does definitely play a role, but I also know a few people, and I honestly don't know very many people, that come from great homes with supporting parents on both ends, and they still turn out gay.
Yeah.
But then I also see a lot of cases like me where there's a disconnect in a parent, and one thing leads to another, and they end up being gay. And I don't know if I ended up being gay or I was gay from the beginning, but
Right.
I definitely do think there is a connection in some cases. But I don't think it could be said for all.
And what do you think people who are gay should do when they're faced with breaking the news to their parents or their school, or any thoughts to people listening? Some of our audience is a spectrum of sexuality. How do you think people could handle that in the best way possible?
I think the best thing you can do is very intelligently judge the situation. Try to make an estimate on how things are going to play out, because it really is terrible when you hear stories of kids coming out to their parents and their parents being like, absolutely not, leave the house.
Yes.
But it's like, I feel like there had to have been some indication that they were going to react that way. They must have been saying negative things about the LGBT community,
Yes.
all that type of stuff. So
Okay.
no one's saying you have to come out at a certain time. No one's
Yes.
saying when or how you have to do it. It's on your terms. Do it when you're comfortable.
Absolutely.
And as Walt likes to say, childhood is.
Childhood is a hostage
It
situation.
is.
It is. And we don't know if our hostage keepers are benevolent or not. And so, as you're saying, if you judge your situation to not be that benevolent, then it almost makes more sense to stay undercover
Yeah.
until you're done with
Yeah.
the childhood
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah,
and
and-
then express yourself to people. There's a saying in AA which is something like, don't share your toys with people who are going to break them. So why are you going to share information with people
Exactly.
who are
That's a
going to
really good way of
stomp
putting
on
it.
it, or people who are going to have a sense of prejudice or prejudgment on it, or
Yes.
not welcome you, or judge you, shame you, blame you, criticize you in any way? You don't want to share that kind of
Yeah.
information.
And as a gay person, I feel it sucks to have to say, no, stay in the closet if you think you need to. But in some cases, it's just best for yourself. You don't want to be homeless. You don't want to be out on the streets.
Yes.
No, that's
You're
that's
your
no
first
fun
priority.
either.
Yes, yes.
That's no fun either.
Yeah.
So that's our show, folks, and we'll do this twice. But if they want to get a hold of you, Austin, how do they do that again?
If you go to YouTube, you can just look up Austin Wallis, AUSTIN WALLIS, and I'm pretty much on all other social media under Austin 445544.
And I really, really appreciate your honesty.
I'm so happy to
and
be here. It was really fun.
Really, thank you. And you're obviously you're such a courageous person
Thank you.
to put it out
Absolutely.
there in such a
Absolutely.
way that I hope we did. I hope we did a good job of presenting this from a psychological
Absolutely.
perspective, and for people who are thinking of sharing this information. I think what you said was right on. That you don't want to share information with people who are going to judge you, blame you, shame you, criticize you.
Well, not to get religious, but the Bible says you don't want to put your pearls before swine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well said. Even though, according to your family, right, and according to the Bible, right, and now there are different interpretations of
Yes.
that as well.
All over the place.
All
It's
over
crazy.
the place, right? Okay, so main thing is that every human being needs to have a sense of belonging. We're wired to connect. We need to be in a community, and we need to surround ourselves with a loving, non-toxic community.
And that brings us to our song.
Yes, and so
We're going to do the song, drink that tune. It's entitled Somebody to Love by Queen. And I'm going to read the lyrics. And Austin, if you want to dive in and put a little
And shrink that
spin
tune
it a little
with me.
bit, be my
I'll
guest.
do my best.
All righty.
Thank you.
So, can anybody find me somebody to love? Each morning I get up and I die a little, can barely stand on my feet. Take a look at yourself. Take a look in the mirror and cry, Lord, what you're doing to me.
Well, I'm going to shrink this according to our conversation, okay? And so bottom line is unconditional love is the most powerful healing
Absolutely it is.
force on the
Absolutely.
planet, and we are wired to connect. So with somebody who is isolated because they're on the spectrum of LGBTQ, maybe they feel a little bit like they're dying because they're so alone and they're so isolated that they can barely stand on their feet because they don't have the support, right?
Yeah.
And they look in the mirror and cry, maybe like you did, thinking, oh my God, I wish I wasn't. I wish I wasn't. Oh my God, what am I going to do?
The worst,
right?
the worst thing about being in the LGBT community is everybody starts off completely alone.
Okay. And then this other sentence here, Lord, what you're doing to me, and that speaks to, well, the Bible says this is not cool.
Yeah.
This is no good. So what are we supposed to do? We look up at God and say, what are you doing to me? I feel this way. My body's this way. Why don't you love me, Lord? Why are you judging me, Lord?
I asked a lot of that.
Okay, so and you did that.
Or
okay.
even just, why me?
Yeah.
Why me?
Like, why did this happen? Like, it says I shouldn't be like this, but like, I
Yes.
can't help
Here I
it.
am.
Okay.
Yeah. I've spent all my years in believing you, but I just can't get no relief, Lord. Anybody find me somebody to love?
Wow. Going back to this point that we're making, that we want the Lord, for those of us that want to connect to God, source, creation, we want the Lord to not judge us, blame us, shame us, criticize us, right? So can't we just get some relief, Lord? And can't you accept a human being as is?
I work hard, he works hard every day of my life. I work till I ache my bones. And at the end of the day, I take home my hard-earned pay on my own. I get down on my knees and I start to pray, praise the Lord, till the tears run down from my eyes. Lord, somebody please, can anybody find me somebody to love?
Okay, so we're speaking to the acceptance here. Please accept me. And just as you were saying, how many times you got
Yeah.
down on your knees and pleaded and
Oh yeah, I
begged.
prayed.
Yeah.
I really, it's just such a confusing state of mind when you're trying to figure everything out. And there is a lot of tears and trying to like figure out like why am I like this? How do I fix this? Like
Yeah.
what do I do? Like someone tell me what to do.
And do I have to fix it to be loved?
Yes.
And do I have to fix it to be loved by the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, those are tough questions.
Yeah.
He works hard every day. I try and I try and I try, but everybody wants to put me down. They say I'm going crazy. They say I've got a lot of water in my brain. I got no common sense. I got nobody left to believe in. Yeah.
As if you chose to be gay, right? So you're going crazy because you're all wrong. Your decisions are distorted. You're all wrong. And so there goes the judgment. You've got a lot of water on your brain. You're not thinking right,
Yeah.
young man. You've got to straighten,
Yeah.
straighten yourself out, okay? And so really what we need more than anything is to have somebody to believe in us, whether it's your mother, your father, the community, somebody.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, somebody, can anybody find me somebody to love? Got no feel, got no rhythm. I just keep losing my beat. Oh, I'm all right. He's all right. He's all right. I ain't gonna face no defeat. I just gotta get out of this prison cell. One day, someday, I'm gonna be free, Lord.
And I think in your case, you carved out your freedom by standing up and taking a courageous step and putting it forth and accepting yourself. Because once you role model accepting yourself, then you may be a lifesaver to other people who are literally suicidal because they don't love themselves because they're being judged, blamed, shamed, criticized. So here you are, stand for getting out of this prison.
Yeah. And it really does kind of like piece together, like it does kind of feel like a